I was going into the city to celebrate Passover. Well, he was being led out of the city to become the Passover lamb, and we didn't have any idea.
I was making my way across town that morning, just like any other, to wash my garments and clothes. For some reason, while walking, the crowds were huge, and I was having trouble pushing past all the people lining the streets. I remember so many men and women screaming terrible things, jeering at something. I didn't know what. Then I saw it, a huge wooden cross, splintered and freshly constructed. I knew what that meant. A crucifixion was about to occur. But why were the crowds so large? Why were there so many angry people hollering as it approached? And that's when I saw the face to face.
When I said yes to God's plan for me to bring His Son into the world, I had no way of knowing what was to come. All I could do in that moment was trust in God's loving plan for my life.
A Roman guard grabbed me, literally pulled me from the crowd, ordering me to carry this man's cross.
Blood pouring down, dousing every inch of his tired, gaunt face. I squinted. Could this be Jesus? The man who 1 week ago arrived with parade and fanfare? The man who cured lepers and brought sight to the blind? The alleged Son of God? How did he get to this place? Why had everyone turned on him? Jesus looked to be carrying the weight of the world.
I froze. I didn't know what to do, until I saw him.
I watched as the crowd shouted for His death, understanding that there was nothing I could do to put a stop to what was about to happen. But this was only the beginning, as I spent hours watching as my son was beaten, mocked, and killed right in front of me.
On that cross, making its way closer to me, I could see my sins, my hurt, my doubt, my fear. All of the secrets I had kept alone in the bottom of my heart, they were there.
I told myself, don't cause trouble with the Romans. Just carry his cross. Take up his cross, Simon, and do it. Forget about your Passover sacrifices and just do it. But as I put my arm around him, as we walked, I felt the weight of the cross on my shoulders upon my back. I was also trying to help Jesus, whose knees kept buckling under a weight that seemed to go beyond the wooden cross.
He struggled beneath the weight of it, suffering greatly. I watched him, wanting nothing more than to remove this burden from him and alleviate his pain. But I knew that God had a plan for him and for me, so I continued on while my heart broke.
How could he see? Grabbing a cloth, I ran to him and met his gaze. It was one of empathy, of acceptance, of undying love. I took my cloth and laid his head in it, cleansing him of all the blood that had streamed down his face. The soldiers got angry and pushed me down on the cobblestone road, but I didn't feel any hurt.
I carried what I could, but he was carrying so much more. I heard the insults, to him, and now to me. I felt the spit. I felt his blood on my skin. I could see the scars and the wounds all over his body. A crown of thorns had been mashed on his head, and blood ran into his eyes.
Eventually, I got through the crowds to reach him. He was in anguish, and all I could do was be there for him. All I could do was be a kind face in a sea of people who mocked him and wounded him.
They took him to Calvary, placed him on a Roman cross, nailed his hands and feet, stood him upright, and I watched him. For 6 hours he strained to stretch as far as he could to get air into his lungs. I looked down, seeing my hands stained with Jesus' blood. I was so worried about his blood making me unclean, when in reality, it's what made me clean.
It was agony to watch my son suffer like he did, but through my presence during the hardest moments of his life, I know that I made his cross lighter. In that moment, all I could do was trust in God's plan and help my son deal with the suffering of the cross through my love and support.
I saw his face imprinted on it. The Savior of the world had left me with his gaze, immortalized on a ragged white linen. All I could do then was stare directly onto the cross, which carried the face of undying.
God called me to show deep love and support to Jesus from the moment I said yes to his call. And though my heart was pierced with sorrow, I had to help him carry his cross in order to fulfill God's saving plan.
He gasped for his last breath, and he died. That day, I picked up my cross. I helped Jesus carry my cross, and Jesus hung and died on my cross.